lunch. And the other thing is, in such a polarized community, or not community, but just a society of politics, you don't want to talk about religion on top of that, you know? So I'm like, golly, I just can't make it, Jason. You got me talking about religion and community and everything else. And this is a great community, so it's easy. But what I thought I would just do is, since it is the afternoon session, I'm just going to have you all stand up for a moment. Just help me out here. What I'd like you to do is, I want you to rapidly introduce yourself to 4 people, but when you do that, I need you to focus on your own eyes. And that is, whenever you introduce yourself to someone, you're going to be looking past their shoulder to somebody else. Does that make sense? So you're going to introduce yourself rapidly to 4 people, but your eyes never look at that person. You're always looking at somebody behind them. Does that make sense? So it's going to go something like, hi, how are you doing? Oh, hey. And keep going, all right? Does that make sense? I'm giving you complete permission to be utterly rude, all right? 4 people, quickly, look past their shoulders, go. Someone as if they were your 6th grade friend and you haven't seen them for decades and you're just now getting a chance to see them. Now, introduce yourself. Who can do this so quickly, and then I had to interrupt you and things like that the second time. Now you're going to have a seat. Thank you so very much. Because really, in many respects, I have a very awkward role, and that is that it's sometimes to not just introduce you, but sometimes reintroduce you to a relationship that many have already discounted as not necessarily credible or even available. And so today I want to talk about the faith-based community. Is because we all have experiences, some of them good and some of them bad. And those experiences, over time, become assumptions. And then those same assumptions, when validated by other people, become a script. And when we have a script, then we start to align to that. And it modifies our very behavior in how we interact. And so while I know you never want to talk about politics, and you certainly don't want to talk about religion, the reality is our scripts are terribly dangerous when it comes to generative generosity or just being in community. And so I would like to validate or press in to the approach, which is what among the faith-based community is to simply serve. And in that serving, I would say that there's probably 4 values. And in that service, is that it does not have an agenda. So it's an agendaless service. In that service, it is utterly humble. It must be approached with humility. It needs to be active listening. Which is pretty, when you're coming in with humility, and when you're coming without an agenda, it's coming in with active listening. And then the 4th, in that approach to service, is to be incredibly or lavishly generous. And I know that, I can talk about with religion, so the sins of the past is sometimes the fact that the church, the synagogue, have maybe come in with an agenda. Probably have come into the conversation saying, gimme, gimme, gimme. And while I cannot necessarily ask for forgiveness on the sins of the past, I pray that you do not hold that sin against the present and the future. Because I think there's a great excitement that's happening. So when people say, hey, I have an idea, should I start a nonprofit? I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? find somebody who's already doing it and join them. You know, we don't need another. And so what happens is that people say all the time, well, what do you do, Rick? And I'm like, well, if I do my job right, nothing. People say, well, they don't really like that answer. And so then I frustrate them with maybe a follow-up. And I said, well, we network networks. Meaning, I don't have to have a business card. I don't have to have a facility. I don't have to have staff. But all we're doing is connecting. And so with humility and active listening and this lavish generosity, it gives the freedom to listen to the pulse of the community and to say that we, the religious or the faith community, should not have a desire in the world other than to listen to whatever it is organically that is already happening. And says, would it be okay if I join you? And so in that stature is where I have hope. Because what is happening is not necessarily organizationally, but individual to individual, and you all probably can't even go to Woodman's anymore without seeing one of these shirts, right? You're seeing these all around the community. I even vacationed in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm seeing these things. Because some within the faith community have a faith-based organization that's helping them out with their financial planning, and what happens is that my wife and I get 2 of these action cards. It's $250 seed money, looks just like a Visa. And so what's happening is that there's infusion of capital, not because of gimme, but because of the faith-based community having these membership rewards of sorts, where I have 2 of these action teams, which is all about, here's 250. Now, go ahead and rally up a small group together and find a team, and we'll see if you can't maybe multiply that. You know, go down and buy some chocolates and sell them for $1 and come back with $500. You know, these type of things are happening. There's a National Christian Foundation, and last year they were giving away $1 billion every year, and by the end of this year, probably down to 6 months, because the economic model is horrible. Horrible. Because it's not about the assets in the foundation as much as the infusion of capital going out. And so a family can literally have an account, and the very next day, drain that account and lavishly give. And so I'm excited because what's happening on a micro level of being able to have this $250 catalytic seed money, that's, you know, I get it 2 a year, my wife gets, that's 4, and whether we use it or not, we get it another time. And so what's happening is that I think that the faith community wants to be generous, and in many respects, we're being given opportunities to be generous. But again, it's from that humble posture, attentive listening, and lavishing generosity. And so within this context, there's just a couple of basic stories, because I'm big into resiliency and the reality of the power of one, right? One person with an idea is a mighty thing. And so many of you might remember a couple of years ago, okay, now I'm dating myself, right? 2010, 11. In the community here, we had Convoy of Hope, which was a gathering, and we got too big for the school that we went over to Fox Valley Tech. Well, the second year, there was a high school senior, and she was so moved as a volunteer of what was happening that she says, you know what? I really think that I need to have one of these in my hometown. And her hometown was New London. And within that context and things, she started off a mission of hope. It became her senior project. And in that senior project, she was able to rally others in the community to come alongside her bold and audacious goal. She wanted to serve 1,000 low-income families on a one-day festival, offering a day of dignity to families. And so many of the same things that were happening at a more of a macro level here in the Fox Cities, with all the provision of shoes and haircuts and interview skills and everything, she wanted to do in a one day. And I'm so thankful for Theta and others who came alongside of her. And that year, she served 687 people. And since then, it continued for 3 years in New London. And then 2 years into that, Wapaka County discovered it and said, well, could we have one in Wapaka? And then the third year, Clintonville Schools heard about it from Wapaka and New London, and they says, well, could we do one of those? And this mission of hope has been happening. But we ended up no longer doing it in New London because while Brooke had gone off to college, her parents were still very much involved. And individuals from New London says, you know, we've noticed something different here, is that you don't have an agenda. Can you just come alongside of us and help us sort some things out? And so for that year, we just listened to community stakeholders, public, social, and private sectors. And the number one thing that came out in New London at that moment was just the fact of keeping our families in the community. So the schools didn't have to necessarily go from this township to this community to this and bring them to school, that they could stay there. And just on August 23rd, this past just a couple of weeks ago, the mission of Hope House was launched, debt-free. Full provision of services for about 6 families, with the fully functional thrift store across the street that's being supported and funded so that that revenue from that thrift store directly comes into these families for sustainability. And now, because we've already been gathering the community and health services together for these, Day of Dignity festivals, they've been asking us to just come alongside and just listen. Because many of these organizations say, you know what, we're so large, we don't even know what we have for programs. And so we've just been kind of listening and cataloging the different programs that already exist in our community, and to be able to start to navigate. And the exciting part about this is that as a result of being blessed with being a resident in this home, that they become the navigators for the provision of services. And so they're the ones who are helping to communicate to, as a referral index of sorts, to know what's available for transportation in Wapaka County, or what's available for this point of need, or this point of need, or this point of need. And so the reality is that by the time that any one of these families were about to leave the Mission of Hope House, because they've been not necessarily, they've been spared some of the negative consequences of poverty and bring them back up, they're going to be going into the community as self-guided navigators to be able to organically communicate services that are already available day in and day out. And so I pray and I trust that you could just open your hearts to at least the consideration of the faith-based community, to be a generalist, to serve with humility, to be attentive in listening, and to discover what it is that you need, in hopes that then we might be able to come alongside of you with our time, perhaps our talents, our treasures, or maybe if we have any, credibility. So it's just a joy to be able to serve, and I'm just thankful for this community and for how you lavishly love this community. And we thank you for the opportunity to hopefully come alongside of you and to serve out. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.